What is up, BookTube? It is Monty, and today I am back again once again with another video. And today we are doing something that I said I wanted to do a couple months ago. So I went to the Kansas Festival of Books only to hear Adib Khorram speak. Wanted to see his little panel. And after the panel, I picked up two of his books, Darius the Great is Not Okay, and the sequel to that, which I am blanking on, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So I picked up those two books, and I said this would be a fun little reading vlog. And then I was sent an arc of Kiss and Tell, because of course I was. So we're going to read those three things this week. And I kind of want to do that because I can. It'll give me a nice little overture of his... I don't think he's been featured in any anthologies, but y'all know I don't include anthologies in this little series that I've been doing. I say series, it was literally one other video where I did fucking Leigh Bardugo, read her backlist, all of it, we got through it. So this is significantly shorter because it's only 3 books. I started listening to the audiobook for Darius the Great is Not Okay on my way to Barnes & Noble. I am now 28% of the way through that audiobook, and this is the only reason we're starting this vlog in the car, because by the time I get back home, probably gonna hit the 50% mark, and then I'm doing reading sprints because I said last night I did some the day of Christmas evening sprints, and the people wanted to keep going, and I said, well, I'll just come back tomorrow on Boxing Day, because who is doing shit on Boxing Day? We'll do like 8 sprints instead of my normal 4 sprints, which that means I'm going to be finishing shit. And so I wanted to have a nice little clip where I came in and we talked about this book, because otherwise there was no way we were going to have any semblance of a vlog. It would have been like a sit-down discussion. And while that would have been nice, I do like having some vlog style moments. So I started listening. So far we are following Darius and his family as they go back to Iran because his grandfather is dying. He has a brain tumor. He's not going to make it. So they're going to go visit his family. This is Darius' first time back in Iran. It's his mother's first time back, and I think they said 17 years. So it's been a while for everybody. And so far I really actually like Darius. I wasn't sure what to expect from this because I'd heard people talk about this in the past on BookTube, but it's been a minute and I haven't seen it brought up. Maybe people bring it up for, you know, like the Pride Month, because I think Darius is supposed to be a queer character. So I think the second book deals with that. There's like a little love triangle. But in this one, so far it's just a slice of life contemporary. We know that Darius is getting picked on at school by this boy. We know that he has depression that he is suffering with, and his father is trying to give this man an eating disorder. So that could also be, if that's something you're sensitive to, go into it knowing that his father is very sensitive to the fact that his son is overweight. I don't know what it is with 2021 and eating disorder content in the media that I've been consuming, but that is very prevalent. So far, it's definitely not to the level as it was in Yoke. It's not like that. I wouldn't, like, this doesn't need the trigger warning that Yoke had, but I do want you to know that his father is definitely not okay with it, and it is something that has been mentioned a couple of times now in the 28% that I've read or listened to. So that's a thing. He has an adorable little sister. Love the little sister character. I love their family. Like, that's, I don't know. Maybe it's because I be looking for mess in the reading that I do, but this little like slice of life, this little community, his family story, it's heartwarming to me, even though again he is being bullied, he has a bunch of shit going on in his life. But this kind of a story about a family and I don't know if they're going to come together, I'm hoping they're going to come together, is something that I find really heartwarming. And I wish a lot more YA was doing this. I think that a lot of YA definitely pushes familial relationships out, and that was a big thing for a really long time. And more recently, I've seen more YA bringing the family back in, particularly from authors of color. They're bringing, like, the family aspect is something that's really big in the story. The same thing happened earlier this year with A Chorus Rises by Bethany C. Morrow, because that was a lot about our girl Naima Bradshaw reconnecting with her family and that was another familial story. How It All Blew Up by Arvin Amati, that had a really big family subplot that I really appreciated. So I'm hoping that the next 2 books that I read from Adib Khorram also continue this, because this is what I'm liking so far about this one. But I'm gonna go so I can focus on driving home. I'll check in once I have, read some more and I have things to talk about.
Good morning, BookTube. I finished Darius the Great is Not Okay, much like I thought that I would. And last night I was on Zoom with Monet and some other friends, and we eventually got around to talking about Darius the Great, because I think that BookTube definitely be lying about this book. Now, I think in my update, the opening to this vlog that you guys just watched, I talked about how this was a book about a queer teenager who was going home with his family to Iran, and they were visiting his dying grandfather. And they definitely go back to Iran, and they definitely visit this man's dying grandfather. But Darius the Great is Not Okay is definitely about Darius and trying to fit in within his own family and outside in the larger context of his family, and coming together with his neighbor boy called Sareb, and them having this friendship. And that's really all it is. There's no romantic element in this book. I think there are definitely hints at and allusions to Darius being queer in this, but it's not like a coming out story. It's not a questioning story. It is literally the story of this family coming together, and Darius finding his space within this family. And it's really just a beautiful book about that. And so why I thought this was anything more than that, I don't really understand. And I don't understand why people are telling people to read this. Yes, Darius is a queer character that's not really addressed within the context of this story, but I don't know. This was just a really good book for people who want a good family story. And I loved every second that all of his family was great. Seeing his relationship to his mother and to his father and to the grandparents that he never knew, and him reconnecting with the culture, and him feeling and him seeing the differences of being, Persian in Iran, and all the Persians that he knows back home in Portland, because there, everyone is, there are significantly fewer Persians in Portland than there are in the, entirety of Iran. And so the differences that don't really matter in Portland suddenly matter when he's in Iran. It's just a really great book, and it deals with friendship in a beautiful, beautiful way. And I just and it doesn't erase the queerness. Yes, Darius is a queer character because, well, that's confirmed over here in Darius the Great Deserves Better, but that has no impact on the actual friendship that this man forms with Sareb, who was his only male friend ever in life. It's good. It's a good book, and I think if you go into this expecting it to be some kind of romantic moment, it's not going to be there. And I feel as I've gotten older, I have definitely seen people calling for male platonic friendship is not as important, or not, I won't say it's as important, but there's enough representation of that. But not like this. I'm sorry, not like this. This was just a book that Monty definitely would have eaten up as a child, and this is a good book without any kind of queer it's just good. It's good. Moving on, during my sprints last night, I started Darius the Great Deserves Better, where we start off the book and Darius has come out as a queer man. He is a gay man who has come out to his family. He came out to Sareb. I was really nervous starting this because I really loved his friendship with Sareb, and I was well, Sareb is back in Iran and this takes place in Portland, so clearly I'm going to lose him. But I have not lost him, because Darius and him continue to FaceTime and keep in contact with another. I think they're probably just Skyping actually, but who knows what they're doing. They are still talking, and that makes me very happy. But this book is supposed to be a love triangle, because we start off the book and Darius is already in a relationship with Landon, who is the son of his boss at the tea place that he really wanted to work at in the first book, because that's part of Darius's personality, is he is a lover of all things tea, but he couldn't work at the actual tea place because he wasn't old enough, and he's still technically not old enough in this book, but I guess because he's dating the owner's son, the owner's just gonna be you can work here, which valid, use what you can. But there's also, according to the back of the book, and it was kind of hinted at the very, very end of this book, the other leg of this triangle is with Chip Kusamoto, who was one of his bullies from Darius the Great is not okay, who never really like did all of the bullying. He was just kind of friends with Darius's bully, and kind of a little bit enabled that. But at the end of this book, he kind of steps up and is like, yo, that's not cool. And that is continued here, where Darius is on the soccer team. He takes what he, from that, like, it's a great little arc. So he's on the soccer team and he's friends with Chip now, kind of. It's kind of like, I don't know how I wound up in this situation friendship, which I think is kind of the best. It feels so natural, where it's like, I didn't used to really fuck with you, but now here we are and we're kind of friends. I think that makes sense. And according to the back of the book, that might be the other leg of the little triangle. And I'm excited to read. I only have around 200 pages left. My goal for this video is to have it up by Wednesday, I think I said on the sprints, which feels very doable. So I'm gonna go. I'll check back in later.
I think I updated you guys when I was like at 50%, and now I am at 80 something percent, so I'm almost done. There's an hour left in the audiobook. If I had brought the physical with me to the library, I would probably be done quicker than I am going to be because I'm listening to this, but it is what it is. My plan is still to finish up this last little bit while I'm hanging out here, and then to pick up Kiss and Tell when I get home. But let's talk about this, because I said that this was a love triangle situation, and that's really, it's kind of true, kind of not. So we do have Darius and Chip getting closer together. They have a friendship that is forming between them, but Landon, his current boyfriend, and Darius have, like, I don't want to call it a toxic relationship, because I don't think it's super toxic. I do think this is it's not healthy for sure, but it is a, like, very baby's first relationship type fight going on. I think it's very realistic in the terms of, like, what they're fighting about, how they are, like, having these arguments. It feels appropriate for the age that they are at and for who these characters are. So I'm not upset about it, but I also don't think that we ever got to see the two of these characters in a light that made me root for them, because we started the book with them being in a relationship, and with Landon making these comments that were already making Darius slightly uncomfortable. And so for me, it's kind of hard to, like, root for those two, because we never got to see the happy moments. We never got to understand, like, why these two characters were together. And then when it comes to Darius and Landon, we didn't get to see these characters, Darius and Chip. Like, yes, they're friends, and we get to see their friendship forming and deepening and them connecting with one another. But at the same time, we didn't get to see the ways, and, like, I don't know, because I'm not really rooting for them either. So it's a very interesting book. I'm also upset because Sharab has vanished. I don't know what's going on with him, but I'm imagining the worst possible thing, because he has just not answered phone calls for the past 30% that I've read. And I'm like, sir, where are you? I am nervous. Where did you go? I want you back. So I'm still having a really good time, because I do think that Adib Khorram is doing a really good job of integrating all of the fun family moments that we got in the first book. Here we get to deal with Lele dealing with racist classmates in, like, she's not in 8th grade, she's an 8-year-old. This 8-year-old be reading books that I have never touched in my life. She was reading Dune, now she's reading the 5th season. I'm like, girl, you are more well-read fantasy reader than a lot of the booktubers I watch. So love that for her. We get to see Steven battling with his own depression, which we kind of got a glimpse at in the first book. I do think that Darius's depression and him working through that, like, all of the mental illness rep in this series, I think has been handled really well. I don't suffer from them, but I'm like, that's great. I also appreciate that Darius's issues with his own, like, self-body image have not vanished. In the first book, he was, like, he had a little, extra weight. I hesitate to call him, like, overweight, because the illustrations on, like, both of these books just have him, well, one, they're of his back, but he is not, like, he just looks like an average person. But I do like how he is still struggling with his weight even after he's become a more athletic individual. Again, it's not to the level of the eating disorder rap that we got in Yoke, but it's still something that I think is very natural. It makes sense. It's not, like, overdone. I don't think it's going to trigger readers who have an eating disorder. but I do think that him struggling with his own body makes sense, especially for a book that's aimed at young people. It feels very, I like it, which is a weird thing to say, but I do think it's handled well. So I'm still having a great time. I think this too is also going to be 5 out of 5 stars. Adib Khorram might be a new favorite author. I don't know if it's this series though. So Kiss and Tell is going to let me know if this is a man that I'm going to be eagerly anticipating all of his releases. But as of right now, I think I will, because he is just doing stuff that is really good that I'm enjoying. And I just love that for the culture.
I finished, where is it at? Here it is. I finished Darius the Great Deserves Better, and I wound up giving this 5 out of 5 stars. I had a really great time with this. I do want to say that repeatedly, I've described this book as having a love triangle and like having a central romantic arc, and having completed the story, I don't necessarily think that that is true. I don't think that's an accurate depiction. Much like the first book in this duology so far, this one also focuses on Darius's family. Again, I think I said this earlier, but specifically with his younger sister and his relationship with his grandmothers, who, yeah, because they come to visit because his father has to be away on business because money is tight, following the events of the first one, the first book, Darius the Great is Not Okay. So money is tight. His father is working on like architecture projects in Los Angeles and in Arkansas. We deal with his father having a depressive episode. We deal with Darius navigating that first relationship with Landon, and yes, like Chip's crush on Darius comes into play over the course of the novel, but it's not to the degree where I would call it an actual love triangle. The book ends on a very open-ended note, I would say. So overall, it's not really a romance. It is very much like the first book, where yes, there's more. Like the issue in this one is centered around his relationship, but there is so much more going on with like team bonding. And so if you liked the first one because of the male friendships, I do think male friendship is still important here. It's still just, it tackles a lot of the similar themes and thematic elements that the first book did, only now we're in Portland and not in Iran. We also got to see Sarab come back at the end. We got a conclusion. I don't want to say a conclusion to that story arc, but there was an arc that was happening with Sarab in this book that made me think like something bad was going to happen to him, and I was not mentally prepared for that happening. And luckily that was not the case. There was a nice little happy resolution to that storyline. I do hope that Darius gets a third book, that we Lara Jean him, because I personally, the last time I marathoned something the way that I marathon through these was when I was reading the To All the Boys books, and I found that those, I think that those books and these books are very similar. And so I want a third book for Darius. I think he deserves it. I think he can do it. We still have his senior year of high school to see. So Adib Khorram, if you're watching, I would like to read it. Humbly requesting. I think it would be good. I would like to see it. I would also just really love a little novella where we got to see Darius and Sarab reuniting, getting to spend a day together, maybe see a movie, hang out, catch up in person, not on FaceTime. That's just me though. Again, a humble request. But that also means it's time for me to read the last book for this project, Kiss and Tell, which is out in March of 2022. So this book is also not very long. It's the longest one to date, and it is 378 pages. So they've gotten progressively longer, but all still under 400 pages. We are in the middle of doing some reading sprints, but I think I'm going to wait till the next sprint to start reading, and I'm going to go watch Erin's worst. No, right now it's most disappointing. I'm going to go watch her most disappointing. Then I'm going to read, and I'll come back and I'll check in once I've done that. Y'all, Joe, we did it. I read Kiss and Tell by Adib Khorram. That means I can finish this video. It means you're watching this on Wednesday. Welcome. Hello. I'm happy you guys got to do this. This was my 100th book of 2021, and I'm very conflicted because on one hand, I do not think that Adib Khorram is the author that I want to go to get contemporary romance. I structured this part of the video a little bit differently because Kiss and Tell is an arc. I didn't want to, because this is going up in December, I didn't want the vlog to kind of go into spoiler territory, into territory that would ruin the book. And so I told myself, I'm just going to read the book. I'll come back in, close everything out this way. And it would allow me to sort of convey my thoughts without ruining anything because the book isn't out till March. So let's discuss it. So for me, what I really loved about Darius the Great is Not Okay and Darius the Great Deserves Better was the family aspect of it. And when I went into Kiss and Tell and there was a boy band element, I kind of thought we were going to get the family aspect through the boy band, and that Hunter's love life would kind of take a back seat. And that was just a wildly incorrect assumption. Like, the book is definitely about his love life and about how it was sort of falling apart, and then it kind of came back together in a way that I just found wholly unbelievable a little bit, kind of, sort of, not even not really, but entirely not. Like, I just didn't find it believable. I also struggled with some of the discussions in the book, because I think that Kiss and Tell definitely puts a lot on the table. I definitely think this is definitely a book that was much like Darius. Those books I think are perfectly fine for an adult audience and the intended actual young adult audience of teenagers. With Kiss and Tell, I think that there's a healthy mix. I think that any teenager reading the book is going to get whatever they want to get out of it. They're going to have a fun little cute time. But as an adult reader coming in, I was thinking that some of the discussions that were brought up in the book, particularly around how adults talk about, queer youth and queer celebrities, and how their private lives are not really their lives, and sort of like, I feel like it was holding up a mirror to adults who talk about queer media, queer celebrities, queer youth in a way that, like, I don't know. I don't want to call it was like a damning mirror, but I definitely think that it forced me, as someone who comes on here and is frequently discussing books that are YA in nature, aimed at a young adult audience, as a queer adult, I think that it definitely forced me to look in on how I discuss things on my channel, not even on channels, but just in general, like the entire media landscape. And I don't really know if those conversations are going to be things that the intended audience of actual teenagers is going to pick up on. I don't know. We'll find out in March, I guess. But it was interesting, because I think that there's definitely an important discussion that was being had through, because the book is told, I wouldn't call it multimedia, but we get chapters that are just from Hunter's perspective, who is our main character in the boy band, but we also get text messages in like the boy band's group chat. We get articles from various news outlets. So it was mostly in these like think piece news articles that discussion was kind of being had. And I don't know if I was a young adult reader, like, 14 to 17, if I'd be picking up on what was being said in those articles in the way that I was reading them. I guess they might have a different interpretation of them. I would love to. I'll wait and see what the teenagers are saying about those parts of the book. But it, and then when we actually, the story is actually about our main character Hunter, who was dating Aiden, and they broke up. Then at the beginning of right at the tail end of the first act, right before we move into sort of like the meaty middle of the book, his ex-boyfriend Aiden released some sexual text messages the two of them had exchanged, and that kind of blows up in his face, and that leads Hunter into this sort of like fake dating, but not really fake dating, media PR relationship that was like definitely giving fanfic. It was giving fanfic, and I don't hate it. So it was in this like PR relationship that Hunter and Kyvan were agreeing wasn't actually fake. It was real, but they never had. I think that what bothered me about this book so much is that I didn't find any of the conversations that any of these characters had to be like actually communicative. Like, I think that it's one thing for two teenagers to be like, I think you're cute, and we're the only two queers on this tour who are like of similar age, so like, let's do it. Fine. But I think that their relationship, they never talked. Like, they had zero, I felt, conversations about anything. And I think that after coming out of Darius and following a Persian main character, to be suddenly following Hunter is not the only white person in the boy band. I believe that Ashton, Aiden's brother, is also supposed to be a white character. But it was just, I don't know. It was definitely feeling like oblivious white boy. And then we had these characters of color around our oblivious white boy who were like trying to have like these subtle conversations about it's hard for us too, but then nobody was talking to anybody. And that came into play in like the last part of the book when Hunter has a complete meltdown and like storms out of an interview. The boy band like rallies together, but at that point they had like zero time left in the novel. There was less than 100 pages, and then the book detours into this like gay nightclub where Hunter is like nearly assaulted in a bathroom because he's like drunk, and like the man is like 25. It was weird. I'm not saying that doesn't happen to queer youth, because I definitely that happens. Whatever was about to happen to Aiden happens a lot, and it was worthy to be commented on in the context of the book. But there were so many things that were going on here that I just wanted more from. Like, the book is long. It's almost 400, like this arc is almost 400 pages. And I think according to Goodreads, the finished book is going to be even longer. I'm sure just because of continued formatting changes or something maybe. But this, I don't know. There was something that was lacking about it. And so I don't quite know how to rate it. I think it's like a 4-star, maybe. Some of the discussions were really a 5-star, but those were completely divorced from the actual plot of the book. Like, all of the news articles and the sort of aspects that had me thinking weren't really related to the main plot of the book. And I thought that it was weird, again, to be set in a boy band, but we really had moments of them being friends, but it was like all of the lighthearted moments and none of the serious conversations that we were getting. And again, I think this definitely did not benefit from me having just read Adib Khorram's other books, because here I feel like characters have meaningful conversations so often. Like, Darius and his family have meaningful conversations. Darius and Sarab have meaningful conversations. Even like Darius's internal monologue is like him having meaningful conversations with himself. And here it was like we were scratching the surface of those conversations, but we never really got them until like literally the end of the book. Like, there was one conversation that Khyven and Hunter had at the very, very end and it gave context to all of the things that we had read in Khyven's interviews that we had seen from his past, like interspersed throughout all the other, news articles and things. It gave context to that and it made it make sense. But at that point in the narrative, the book was like over. Like, we were done. Like, you had already wrapped them up. They were already having like a happily for now situation. And I don't know. It's definitely a very complicated book. I think that it's good. I would recommend people read it, but I think I just had the wrong kind of expectations. And so maybe other people will have a much better time. So I think I am going to wind up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. I like it. I probably would reread. I might reread when the book is finally out and see like what the edits were, what changes were made. But these two are definitely all-time favorites. Both of these are 5 out of 5 stars. Ultimately, I definitely like Adib Khorram's writing. I definitely think this is an author that I'm going to continue to look for, their new releases, and keep up with, because I do like how he tells a story, and I am interested to see what he works on next. So if you've made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. You can go ahead and drop this emoji, whatever that I'm doing here, down in the comment section below. I'll see you guys again soon with another video, but until then, and until next time, bye.